Okay, I'm here with Jimmy and the Kitty Club, and we're going to read the next section of Avril Crump and her amazing clones. When we left off, the clones had stayed the night with Lionel, and Lionel was fascinated with all of their stories about Leviticus. He is a bit of a conspiracy theorist, and so we don't know what happened exactly to Avril and Dr. Weatherby. Chapter 8 is called Morning Has Broken. Dr. Seducta awoke as Retchford Church's dismal bell chimed 4 o'clock. She shifted uncomfortably on her bench. In the harsh electric glare of the lights from the nearby main street, Memorial Park was not a nice place to sleep on a freezing winter night. Avoiding a particularly splintery patch on the bench, she curled her legs up tight and pulled her thin lab coat closer around her shuddering shoulders. She was not accustomed to spending nights out in the open. Her jobs usually took her to the best hotels in the most glamorous locations in the world, not park benches in the horrible little towns like this. Only one inn in the place, and that miserable old man wouldn't even let her in. A bitter gust of wind suddenly rolled across the park, gathering speed and almost knocking her off the bench. Her legs, numb with cold, trailed uselessly on the ground. She heaved herself up into a sitting position and stared out into the night with stinging eyes. She could give up now. There was bound to be a taxi somewhere in town, and she could be on the road to civilization instead of shivering on this bench. Then a plane to somewhere exotic and far away. But if she abandoned this job, her boss would hunt her down to the farthest corners of the globe. There was nowhere to hide from a man like him. Dr. Seducta shuddered again, but not because of the cold. She simply had to find the clones, and if she did not, it would be better to freeze to death than endure the dreadful punishment that failure would certainly bring. She took out her cell phone and dialed a number with a trembling fingernail. "I thought I should keep you updated," she said. "I'm in Retchford on the Reek. They'll be here looking for Avril Crump, I'm sure of it. As soon as I find them, I'll deliver them to you." "Do so." The phone went dead. Dr. Seducta replaced the phone in her pocket and turned back to her wooden bench to lie down again. A small pigeon had landed where her head had been and was hunched up against the cold. "Hello, little bird," crooned Dr. Seducta. "Are you sleeping in my space?" She reached out a hand and snapped the pigeon's neck. Then she brushed its still warm body onto the ground and lay back on the bench. She needed more sleep. It was going to be a very busy day. It was 5:30 in the morning when Lionel parked his yellow Mini on the deserted main street outside the Retchford Town Library. Pleasantly soothed by the stew, the 3 clones had fallen asleep beside the fire, one by one. Eddie had told Lionel as much as she knew about the contents of the dumpster, which for some reason he was particularly interested in, until her eyelids drooped and a welcome wave of wooziness washed over her weary body. Lionel had covered her with a blanket and promised he would be back soon. Lionel had not been a policeman for so long without picking up a few handy tips from house burglars, and he was used to sneaking into the library in the dead of night. It was the only time he could go and use the internet without being thrown out by the librarian who had banned him several years ago for being a nuisance. He opened up his car trunk and took out a metal crowbar, then padded silently across the frozen pavement and around to the back of the library. There was the large, low window he usually used. It only took a moment to jimmy it open with his crowbar, and slightly longer to haul himself through it. It got more difficult every time, and Lionel paused for a moment to rest his aching limbs. but there wasn't a minute to waste. He felt his way through the darkened hallways to the small computer room and settled at the terminal. Logging on to the internet, he spent a happy few minutes glancing through his favorite websites, extremelysuspiciouscoverups.com and unlikelycoincidencesthatshooktheworld.com, before remembering that there was work to be done. He tapped Professor Blott's name into a search engine. Your search, Professor Blott, did not match any documents. Do you mean Professor Blute? I suppose I might, Lionel said, clicking on the alternative spelling. Professor Gideon Blute, rogue scientist expelled from top laboratory for illicit human cloning. Lionel's heart did a little leap. He entered the page to read the full article. Body parts found in basement, developed new technology, no comment from Leviticus. Lionel could hardly believe this was happening. He had never managed to get information like this on the Chunky scandal. He took out his notebook and began scribbling away. Eddie dozed until just after 7 o'clock in the morning, when she was awakened by her own shivering. Lionel's fire had burned itself out, and the coals were cold and gray. Neither Augustus nor Bonaparte was to be seen, but there were loud noises coming from the kitchen. Rubbing her hands together for warmth, Eddie got up and peered around into the kitchen. It did not look like it had the night before. Bonaparte was there, humming a tune, and barely visible behind a mist of liquid soap bubbles. He brandished a small mop. Every surface gleamed. "Good morrow," he beamed. "Stew?" 'Twill be a tasty meal, Miss Eddie. I have done away with the mold, the infestations, and the small plague of mice that did conceal themselves in the cookie jar." Eddie began to feel queasy. "And I have made many fascinating discoveries. This jug, for example," he picked up the electric kettle, "doth boil water with no more than the flick of yon switch, and yon mysterious container, the toaster, who knows what magic this may perform? I suspect it to be a device in which sausages may be toasted. Oh, Miss Eddie, I shall toast sausages for dear Lady Avril when once again we find her. She doth look as though she may be partial to a toasted sausage." "That's wonderful, Boney." Eddie patted him on the shoulder. "And, Miss Eddie," Bonaparte was turning slightly pink, "I have also a surprise in store for the marvelous Mr. Dog." He reached under his hat and took out a bundle of paper. "Might I be permitted to demonstrate it to thee?" "Well, yes, Boney, but it really depends what it—" "'Tis a song!" Bonaparte waved the pages at her. "I have been working upon it in my head for some time, and inscribed it upon these sheets while thou dost sleep. 'Tis entitled, 'My Name is Mr. Dog.' A good title, think ye not?" "Well, I suppose." "Good friends, I prithee, gather around me, and hear my tale, it will astound thee. 'Tis but one day since Mother Earth was blessed by heaven with thy birth, the which was so unorthodox that verily 'twill blow thy socks. Prepare to find thyselves amazed, and marvel at the issues raised, and learn enthralled and tranced, agog, the wondrous tale of Mr. Dog. For yea, my name is Mr. Dog. Hooray, my name is Mr. Dog. I'll say, my name is Mr. Dog. My name is Mr. Dog." Bonaparte's hand, which had been tapping the table rhythmically, hovered in midair. He beamed at his one-person audience. "There are several more verses to be enjoyed, Miss Eddie, and thou art warmly invited to join with in yon chorus." Thank you, Boney, but not now." Eddie was already backing toward the door at top speed. "I really must go and wake Augustus. Lionel may be back with information any minute now. Tell you what, why don't you make us all a hot cup of tea?" "But of course." Bonaparte seized the kettle. "What with this miraculous jug, we shall partake of tea in no time at all. There will be time aplenty for song." He pulled open the fridge and gasped. "A chilled cabinet! 'Tis a home fit for a king." Bonaparte's strange ditty rang in Eddie's ears as she escaped to look for Augustus. Suspecting she knew where the dog might be, she marched up the stairs and tried the first door on the left. Sure enough, it was a bedroom, and sure enough, Augustus was there. He was standing in front of a full-length mirror, contorting himself into a ridiculous pose and pouting slightly as he admired his reflection. Sleep well? Thinking fast, Augustus crumpled to the floor. Where am I? He gasped. Who am I? He added, twitching and looking wild. I must be delirious. The cold last night. I have a terrible fever. Come on, Eddie grinned. We haven't got time to be delirious. We should get ready. We may need to leave quickly when Lionel gets back. Bonaparte's voice floated upstairs. Breakfast, Mr. Dog? I am making the most delicious stew. Is he completely insane? Augustus snapped. I don't want stew for breakfast. It's bad enough for dinner. Can't he serve something more suitable for a dog? I have some lovely fresh carrots, Bonaparte was calling, and a delicious piece of meat. I did also take some ripe tomatoes and juicy mushrooms. 'Twill be a veritable feast. Really, Boney, we don't have time for... Eddie paused. Then she went to the door and peered down the stairs. What do you mean you took some tomatoes? Where did you take them from? Oh, Miss Eddie, 'twas a wonderful place. All manner of edibles did adorn the shelves. Women did fill rolling carts with a marvelous array of goods. There were fruits there I could never have dreamed of, and meat, oh, what meat, in perfect little packages. Boney, Eddie said, you went out? Alone? Shopping? The institution proclaimed itself to be a supermarket, Bonaparte continued, but I would not stop at such modesty. 'Twas more than super, 'twas a splendid market. How did you pay for this food, Eddie? Eddie was fierce as she came down the stairs. Pay? Echoed Bonaparte. But I did not think... The doorbell rang. Visitors! Bonaparte shrieked, and just in time for a song and breakfast. He raced for the door. Thinking fast, Eddie stuck out a foot. No, she hissed, as he gazed up at her from the floor. Don't answer it. Just stay quiet and they might go away. The doorbell rang again, longer this time. Eddie shook her head as Bonaparte opened his mouth. Don't even think about it. They'll go away in a minute. There was a pounding on the door. Police, open up! Police? Bonaparte looked thrilled. They must be friends of dear Mr. Lionel. We must invite them in. No, Eddie said, don't move. She tried to stay calm and think. Lulled into a false sense of security while Lionel had been around, she was back on full alert. She could not let the police into the house. Bonaparte was far too much of a liability. Hey, Eddie, what's all the racket? Can't a dog get any peace around here? Oh, and there was the small matter of the talking dog at the top of the stairs. Eddie turned to face him. Go and hide in the bedroom. You too, Boney. She hauled Bonaparte to his feet and gave him a shove up the stairs. Do not come out until I say so. Bossy boots, Augustus grumbled. Do this, do that, go here, go there. He pulled Bonaparte up the last few stairs toward him with his teeth. This wouldn't happen in Japan, you know. People talking to the Emperor's guard dog in your tone would be fed to the lions, or worse. Just do what I say, Eddie eyed Augustus, and shut up. Sulking now, Augustus stalked back to the bedroom. Eddie took a deep breath, composed her features into an innocent smile, and opened the door. A uniformed policeman in mid-bang fell forward and landed with a yelp. Good morning, Eddie said. Can I help you? Another dark blue figure, a scowling policewoman, looked down at her. Get up, Watts, she said, without taking her eyes off Eddie. May we speak with your father, dear? My father? Eddie shuffled forward and carefully pulled the door closed behind her. Sheer curtains were twitching all along the street as nosy neighbors spotted the police car. A man was seen entering this house after stealing 18 pounds and 71 pence worth of goods from the 24-hour branch of Sunny Supermarkets on Reek Way. Tall, very thin. Is that your dad? No, I'm afraid it isn't. Eddie smiled again. The policeman's beady eyes narrowed. Let us in, dear. It did not sound as if she thought Eddie was very dear at all. I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to talk to strangers. Okay. The policeman gave up all pretense of kindness. Watts, search the house. And we'll stop there for now. All right, I will see you next time. Bye.